Welcome to Project Blackwood.
Open the file.
Today, we aren't looking at a restaurant.
No, we really aren't.
I mean, if you are tuning into this deep dive thinking we're here to talk about special sauce or, the exact crispiness of a fry,
You're definitely looking at the wrong file.
right, we are looking at what I can only describe as a corporate transformation anomaly.
That's complete mutation.
It is. It's a case study in how a business entity can completely hollow itself out, just completely invert its operating model, and somehow, defying all logic, become more valuable than ever before.
It's a paradox, honestly, because if you just look at the surface, right, the signage, the commercials, the brand identity, it is burgers and fries.
Obviously.
But if you actually dig into the forensics, if you look at the balance sheet, the debt covenants, the org chart, it's something else entirely.
So let's establish the baseline here.
Okay.
The then versus now contrast. Because this is the part of the research that I actually had to stop and reread the numbers.
You thought it was a typo.
I literally thought it was a typo. 3 times I checked this.
There are no typos in this file. Just evolution. Or maybe devolution, depending on how you look at it.
Well, let's set the scene. Then the year is 1965.
Right.
The company is a high-growth operator. They have 738 locations, minimal debt,
Very clean balance sheet.
very clean, and they were doing one thing. They were selling food to people in cars. Fast forward to 2005, the workforce peaks. They have 447,000 corporate employees.
An absolute army.
It's a massive operational army, yes.
And then we look at the now.
Right. The year is 2025. This entity is no longer an operator. It is a highly leveraged real estate holding company.
Highly leveraged is an understatement. Look at the total debt line.
I have it right here. It is $55.81 billion.
Billion. With a B.
Yes. And the workforce slashed 150,000.
Which means they offloaded 93% of their operations.
93%. They do not run the restaurants anymore. They barely employ anyone compared to that 2005 peak.
Which brings us to the stock.
Right. And this is the mystery question for this whole investigation. This is the smoking gun. How does a company sell fewer burgers directly?
Right.
Fire 64% of its corporate workforce, accumulate nearly $56 billion in debt.
And yet the stock goes from half a penny to $334 a share.
It makes no sense.
No. I mean, if you were running a factory, right, and you fired 60% of your staff and took on $50 billion in debt, you would be bankrupt by Tuesday.
You'd be locked out of the building.
Yeah.
Exactly. So why are they sitting at an all-time high?
Well, that is the investigation, because what you are about to discover, what this file proves, is that the burger business died decades ago.
Yeah.
What replaced it is this highly sophisticated financial engine. It's just disguised by golden arches.
So let's trace this back to the origin. We need to look at the DNA to understand how this mutation even happened.
1940 to 1961.
Right.
You really have to start in San Bernardino, California. 1948.
Richard and Maurice McDonald.
Right.
And this is not the story people think they know.
No, the mythology is entirely different from the reality.
Because these guys, the brothers, they were already successful. They were running a barbecue
It
joint.
was a very popular drive-in. They had cars lined up down the street.
Yeah.
And if you look at the early menus we unearthed here, it was massive.
Yeah, barbecue beef, pork sandwiches, ribs, the whole works.
And they had car hops.
Right, the car hops were the whole vibe back then.
Exactly. Young women carrying trays out to the window. It was a social scene.
Very American graffiti.
Very that.
Yeah.
But Richard and Maurice, they were obsessed with the numbers. They were early data guys. They looked at the receipts for the year, and they found a data anomaly that just really bothered them.
What did they find?
80% of their volume, 80% of their actual sales was hamburgers.
Just the burger.
Just the burger. All the barbecue, the ribs, the pork.
It was just noise.
It was a distraction. And the car hops.
Well, the car hops are a problem.
The huge problem. They were slow. They attracted teenage boys who would just loiter around without actually buying food.
Yeah.
They broke the dishes constantly. The labor cost was astronomical.
So in a moment of what looks like absolute business insanity, the brothers fired everyone.
They shut down a highly profitable business.
Which is wild.
They shut it down completely for 3 months. They fired all the car hops. They took all the silverware, all the plates, and literally replaced them with paper bags and wrappers.
Just stripped it down to the studs.
And they took a machete to that menu. They went from 25 items down to 9.
9 items.
That's it. Hamburger, cheeseburger, fries, shake, soft drinks, milk, coffee, pie, and chips.
And what was the price point?
15 cents.
15 cents. This is the exact birth of the speedy service system.
It is the first layer of the corporate DNA, efficiency over experience. They realized that the customer didn't actually care about the show of the drive-in. They didn't care about the plates or the car hops.
They cared about the speed and the price.
Exactly. They basically turned a restaurant into a factory assembly line.
But the thing is, the brothers were local guys.
Very local.
They were totally happy making, what, $100,000 a year?
Yeah, which is great money. They had a nice house, new cars. They were content.
Right. But then the virus enters the system, 1954.
Ray Crook.
Cray Crook.
And Crook is not a chef.
No.
He isn't a restaurateur at all. He sells milkshake mixers.
A multi-mixer.
Right. He's a traveling salesman who is basically watching his own business die because the traditional soda fountains are closing down all across the country.
Yeah, his territory is drying up.
And then suddenly he gets an order for 8 multi-mixers from one single burger shack in San Bernardino.
Which makes no sense to him.
None. So he flies out there and he sees the volume. He sees the line of people wrapping around the building. But unlike the brothers, who just see a nice, profitable family business, Crook sees a replication model.
He sees a manufacturing plant that he can clone across the country.
Exactly.
So he pitches them, and he signs the contract to be their franchise agent. But looking at the file here,
You look at the terms.
this contract was terrible for him.
It was an absolute disaster. The brothers were total control freaks. They gave Crook the rights to franchise the system, sure, but he only got 1.9% of the gross sales from the franchisees.
1.9%.
And out of that 1.9%, he had to give 0.5% back to the brothers.
So wait, he is keeping 1.4% to run the entire corporate expansion?
Exactly. He is opening stores in DePlain, in Fresno, in Chicago,
Yeah.
but he is drowning in overhead. He's hiring lawyers, real estate scouts, regional managers, and the cash flow from 1.4% of a 15-cent burger,
It's not covering it.
it isn't even coming close.
He is effectively bankrupting himself by succeeding.
He is. He's expanding the chain at an incredible rate, but he's barely making payroll. The margins are just compressing tighter and tighter.
And this is where the rug pull happens.
Yes.
This is the exact moment the company stops being a restaurant. The year is 1956. We found the name deep in the financial files here. Harry J. Sunborn.
The financial genius of the story.
Yeah.
A man who saved the company and basically destroyed its innocence in the exact same breath.
Sunborn looks at Crook's books and he tells him, Ray, you are confused. You do not know what business you are actually in.
He says, you are not in the burger business. You are in the real estate business.
I want to slow down here. We need to dig into this because this is the specific mechanism that still runs the machine today.
It is the core engine.
Explain this Sunborn model. Like, I'm a 5-year-old. How does buying land fix a burger cash flow problem?
Okay, so before Sunborn came along, Crook would find a franchisee.
Right.
The franchisee would find a location. They would rent the land from some random local landlord, and then they would pay Crook that tiny little franchise fee.
Okay, so Crook had no leverage over the actual property.
Zero leverage. If the franchisee went rogue, Crook had a very hard time evicting them. Sunborn said, stop doing this. He set up a shell company.
Franchise Realty Corp.
Exactly. He told Crook, we will go find the land. We will lease the land from the owner for, let's say, $500 a month.
Okay, so corporate now holds the master lease.
Right. Then they turn around and sublease that exact same dirt to the franchisee. But they don't charge them $500.
They mark it up.
They charge them $700. Or they charge them a percentage of their total monthly burger sales, whichever number is higher.
Wait, so they are just arbitraging the dirt?
They are acting as a middleman on the real estate.
Right.
But here is the kicker, the really brilliant part. The franchisee is absolutely required to sign this specific lease if they want the franchise rights.
Wow. So now the franchise pays Crook a royalty just to use the name.
And they pay rent to Sunborn just to stand in the building.
So even if that specific operator is struggling to sell burgers one month, even if a freeze hits or beef prices spike,
The rent is still due.
the rent is always due.
Always. The corporation becomes the landlord. The operator takes all the risk of selling the food, managing the teenagers, cleaning the grease traps, dealing with local health inspectors.
And corporate just takes the guaranteed rent check.
Exactly.
That is, I mean, that's brilliant, but it's incredibly predatory.
It changed everything overnight because suddenly Crook had a revenue stream. that banks actually understood.
Oh, because banks hate restaurant risk?
Banks despise burger flipping risks. Restaurants go under every day. But banks love real estate leases with guaranteed contractual returns.
So with those leases, they could borrow money against the dote they acquired to buy more land, to open more stores.
To create more leases. It's a
Yeah.
massive financial flywheel.
Yeah.
And if you look at the data today, that single decision by Sunborn accounts for roughly 35% of their annual gross revenue right now.
35%.
But if you look at the balance sheet, the actual assets, they are sitting on $37.7 billion in assets.
And that's not fryers and grills.
No, most of that isn't kitchen equipment. It's dirt. It is premium corner lots at major intersections all over the world.
That is the moment the soul of the company fundamentally shifted.
Completely.
But the brothers, Richard and Maurice, they were still in the way.
They hated this.
They didn't like this Wall Street corporate maneuvering. It wasn't what they built.
So we get to 1961, the buyout.
Right. The number is $2.7 million cash. That's what the brothers demanded to walk away and hand over the rights entirely.
Which is, if you calculate inflation, about $23 million in today's money.
Which sounds incredibly low for the McDonald's brand.
It does now, but back then, it was an absolute fortune. It was enough for them to retire comfortably, pay their taxes, and walk away with $1 million each.
But Kroc doesn't have $2.7 million in cash.
Not even close, but because of the Sunborn model.
He has the credit.
Exactly. Sunborn leverages the real estate assets, all that dirt they had been acquiring, to secure the massive loan from multi-employer pension funds and insurers.
That is just poetic irony. The real estate business literally bought the burger business.
They used the land to buy the soul of the company, and with that single check, the brothers are out. Kroc has total, undisputed control.
And the speedy service ethos is now permanently secondary to the real estate expansion ethos.
It's locked in.
Okay, so the DNA is set. They are landlord first, restaurant second. But fast forward a few decades.
Let's jump ahead.
The empire is huge. It's global. And like every massive empire, they get bored.
Or they get arrogant.
Or both.
Yeah.
This brings us to what we call the lost decade, 1998 to 2003.
I really look at this as the identity crisis phase.
Digging into this, it really looks like they started acting as if they were ashamed of the burger.
They absolutely were. You have to look at the context of the late 90s. The health craze is starting to whisper. The fast casual movement is just starting to bubble up.
Yeah, people are starting to talk about fresh food, organic, made to order.
And McDonald's executives looked at their own core menu and they panicked.
They really thought the burger was dead.
They thought it was a commodity at a dead end. They thought their core growth was over. So they decided to, quote, diversify.
Which is just corporate speak for, we do not trust our own product anymore.
Exactly. Look at the shopping spree in the files.
I have it here. 1998, they buy a minority stake in Chipotle Mexican Grill. 1999, Donato's Pizza.
A pizza chain.
143 locations of pizza. Then also in 99, Aroma Cafe in the UK.
Basically trying to be Starbucks.
And then 2000, Boston Market.
I remember Boston Market. The rotisserie chicken places.
Yeah. They bought it out of bankruptcy for $173.5 million.
It's baffling.
Why? Why is a highly tuned burger landlord buying a distressed rotisserie chicken chain and a regional pizza place?
Because they wanted to own dinner. They did the internal math and saw they completely owned breakfast and they owned lunch.
Sure.
But families weren't coming in for dinner. They thought, well, if we put pizza in the McDonald's stores, or if we offer home-style rotisserie chicken, we can capture the evening crowd.
And that arrogant assumption led directly to the crash.
2002.
The smoking gun of the era.
For the first time since the 1965 IPO, they post a quarterly loss.
The stock hits $16.08. Net income collapses from $1.6 billion down to $893 million.
And look at the customer satisfaction scores from that quarter.
Oh, they are dead last.
Lower than the DMV. Literally.
Why, though? I mean, what actually happened inside the physical restaurants?
Kitchen chaos. Absolute, unmitigated operational meltdown.
Explain that.
Imagine you are a teenager working the line, okay?
Okay.
You're trained to make a Big Mac in exactly 35 seconds. That is the speedy system.
Right.
Suddenly, corporate headquarters tells you that you also have to manage a pizza oven that takes 12 minutes to bake.
Oh, wow.
And you have to carve a rotisserie chicken. And you have to froth milk for an artisan latte.
The system broke.
The speedy service system, the exact thing Richard and Maurice invented to save their business, cannot handle variability.
Because pizza is slow?
Pizza is slow.
Yeah.
Chicken on a spit is slow. Burgers are fast. When you mix them on the same assembly line, the whole line stops.
So wait times just skyrocketed.
Skyrocketed. The food was going cold, waiting for the slow items. The employees were incredibly stressed. Turnover spiked.
The operational body rejected the transplant,
Violently.
which forces the pivot. Enter the plan to win. 2003.
CEO Jim Cantalupo.
He comes in, and he immediately halts the expansion.
He looks at this bloated portfolio and says, sell it all. Better, not bigger.
So they purge it. They sell Donato's in 2003. They sell Aroma Cafe. They eventually sell Boston Market in 2007.
But there is one what if in this specific file that just drives me crazy.
But one that got away. This story is fascinating because the data here shows McDonald's owned 90% of Chipotle by the mid-2000s.
They didn't just invest some seed money. They fully funded the growth from 14 stores to 500 stores.
They built the supply chain for them.
They built the logistics, the infrastructure, everything.
And then in 2006, they just dumped it.
They did a tax-free split-off. They walked away with about $743 million.
They cashed out early.
Way too early.
If they had kept that, let's just do the math. If they had held on to that 90% stake, what is Chipotle worth today?
Well, Chipotle's market cap hovers around $80 billion, depending on the day's trading.
So 90% of that.
$70 billion, give or take.
They left $70 billion on the table.
Easily.
Why? Why on earth would you sell a rocket ship that you own 90% of?
Because of the culture clash.
Yeah.
And this is the part of the forensics that doesn't show up neatly in the spreadsheets.
What do you mean?
McDonald's executives constantly kept trying to McDonaldize Chipotle.
How so?
They would go to Steve Ells, the founder of Chipotle, and say, why are your employees chopping tomatoes by hand in the back every morning? That's inefficient. Buy pre-sliced tomatoes in bags from a central commissary.
And what did Elle say?
He refused. And then they said, why don't you have drive-thrusts? You need to put drive-thrusts in every single Chipotle.
And Elle said no to that too.
He said that ruins the food. Chipotle is a visual assembly line where the customer actually walks down the counter and watches the food being made.
Right, you point at the salsa you want.
Exactly. You cannot do that through a speaker box in a drive-thru lane.
But McDonald's couldn't understand a model that wasn't based on hidden manufacturing and pure speed.
It reveals the intense rigidity of their corporate DNA. McDonald's is a hammer, and Chipotle just wasn't a nail.
So they threw away the diamond because it didn't look like a nail.
That's exactly it.
Amazing. So they purged the distractions, they go back to basics, but they clearly do not learn the lesson fully because they hit another wall.
The cycle repeats.
Section 3 in our file here. The second stagnation, 2014 to 2016.
The menu bloat returns. It's like an addiction they just cannot kick.
By 2014, if you look at the drive-thru menu, it has 120 distinct items.
Which is up 75% from just 2004.
Yeah.
They spent a decade just stacking new things on the board.
And look at the wait time metric. It hits a peak of 189.49 seconds.
Over 3 minutes.
In the drive-thru ecosystem, 3 minutes is an absolute eternity.
You start seeing cars physically driving away.
Yeah.
Backing out of the lane.
The system was paralyzed all over again. Consumer sentiment tanked. Consumer Reports literally ranked them dead last for the Big Mac.
I want to look closely at the bodies in the R&D lab from this era.
The failed experiment.
Yes, because these aren't just bad sandwich ideas, right?
Right.
They are evidence of a company that fundamentally forgets who it is.
It's a graveyard of bad ideas. Let's trace a few of these. Start with the Mighty Wings.
Oh, the Mighty Wings. 2013, this was a classic supply chain disaster.
Trace that for me.
Yeah.
What happened?
McDonald's decided they suddenly wanted to compete with places like Buffalo Wild Wings. So they used their massive global purchasing power to buy up millions of pounds of chicken wings.
They basically cornered the entire global wing market.
They did. The commodity price of wings spiked because they bought so much.
Right.
But then they priced them in the stores at a premium. It was something like $5 for 5 wings.
Which is, that's a normal price for a sports bar.
Sure. But it is incredibly expensive for a McDonald's drive-thru.
Because the McDonald's customer has a very specific hard price ceiling in their mind.
Exactly. The customer looked at that price tag and said, no thanks, I will take the $1 menu burger.
So what happened to the inventory?
McDonald's was left holding literally tons of frozen wings. Millions of pounds. They had to deeply discount them to pennies just to clear out the freezers.
Here's a meat mountain of
A
failure.
very expensive one.
And then there's the McDLT.
Going back a bit, but yes.
I know it's an older file, but it speaks so perfectly to their obsession with packaging over product.
The styrofoam disaster.
Hot side hot, cool side cool.
The double container concept. It's actually a great concept scientifically, right? Because nobody likes warm lettuce on a burger.
Right, keep the cold veggies away from the hot meat until the last second.
But operationally, it required a custom, massive styrofoam container that was twice the size of a normal burger box.
So it immediately filled up all the trash cans in the dining room.
And it was an absolute environmental nightmare right at the exact cultural moment when the whole world was waking up to the ozone layer and styrofoam pollution.
Totally tone deaf. But the biggest body in this grave, hands down, is the Arch Deluxe.
The adult burger.
I'm looking at the marketing spend on this. They spent $100 million marketing this one burger in 1996.
100 million.
On a sandwich.
Well, look at the ingredients. Peppered bacon, stone ground mustard, a, quote, bakery-style bun.
They were trying so hard to be fancy. The commercials, I remember watching these, they actually showed kids looking at the burger and saying, yuck.
They literally marketed their new product by insulting their core demographic.
They actively tried to be exclusionary. They wanted to be perceived as sophisticated.
But here's the brutal truth that they refuse to accept. Nobody, and I mean nobody, goes to McDonald's for a sophisticated dining experience.
No.
Not even adults. You go to McDonald's because you are tired, you're in a hurry, and your brain wants that very specific, mathematically perfect mix of salt, sugar, and fat that you remember from when you were 7 years old.
That's it. The Arch Deluxe was a total rejection of their own identity.
And it flopped harder than almost anything in fast food history.
So we get to 2015. The company is stalling out again. Stock is flat. Menu is a mess.
Enter Steve Easterbrook.
The turnaround.
He takes over as CEO, and he brings out the machete again. Menu trimming.
He kills the complex stuff.
He kills the Create Your Taste initiative, which was this absurd, customized burger idea with touchscreens that was completely clogging up the kitchens.
And he pulls off the big win, all-day breakfast.
Which was the genius move. Because think about it, it didn't require any new equipment.
No new fryers, no new ovens.
It didn't require any new exotic ingredients. It just required operational flexibility.
People had been begging for Egg McMuffins at 2 p.m. for literally decades.
And he finally just gave it to them. He traded out all those complex, low-selling lunch and dinner items for a very simple, high-margin product that everyone already loved.
But Easterbrook did something else, something much bigger behind the scenes.
Yes.
And this leads us to the dark heart of this investigation. Section 4, the financial engineering era, 2015 to 2025.
This is the exact phase where the restaurant permanently stops being a restaurant.
I call this the corpse investigation.
Why?
Because if you just casually look at the headcount and the employee numbers, you would think the company died.
Look at the data trace. 2005, 447,000 corporate employees.
Fast forward to 2022, 150,000 employees.
That is a 64% reduction in human capital.
Wait, let's just pause on that number. 447,000 down to 150,000.
Yeah.
That is not a trim. That is an amputation.
It is.
If an auto company fired 60% of its assembly line workers, we would safely assume the factories were shutting down.
You'd assume imminent bankruptcy.
But look at the stock price in that exact same window. It tripled.
It skyrocketed.
How? You physically cannot fire 300,000 people and still run the restaurants.
But that's the trick. Because they don't run the restaurants anymore.
Explain that.
This is a strategy called refranchising.
Walk me through the mechanics of that.
Historically, McDonald's corporate owned about 15 to 20% of all the restaurants directly.
Okay, so company owns stores.
Right. They hired the general managers, they paid the burger flippers, they handled the health insurance, the payroll, all of it.
Got it.
Easterbrook and the board looked at the landscape and decided that operating actual restaurants is just too messy.
Messy.
It involves legal liability. It involves minimum wage debates. It involves unionization drives. So they decided to just wash their hands of it. They culled them.
They sold the corporate stores back to the franchisees.
Exactly. They sold the daily operations. So those 300,000 people who miraculously disappeared from the corporate payroll,
Yeah.
most of them didn't actually lose their jobs. They just got transferred over to a local franchisee's payroll.
So corporate McDonald's completely insulated itself from the labor force.
They washed their hands of the human risk. Wage inflation hits. Not corporate's problem, that's the franchisee's margin taking the hit.
A manager harasses an employee.
Not a corporate lawsuit. That's the franchisee's legal problem. Corporate just sits back in Chicago and collects the royalty check and the rent check.
It is pure extraction. They transitioned into a pure landlord.
And it made their margins look absolutely incredible to Wall Street because they dumped all the low-margin costs of human labor and kept all the high-margin revenue of real estate rent.
But here is the part of the file that genuinely terrifies me. The debt.
The debt explosion. It's staggering.
Look at this chart. In the year 2000, their long-term debt is $8.4 billion.
Which is very manageable for a company that size.
But by 2025, the long-term debt hits $39.4 billion, and total debt is over $55 billion.
They basically quintupled the debt load.
Hold on, we have to ask why.
Right.
Because they are not building massive numbers of new corporate stores with this money. We just established they are selling them off.
Right.
They certainly aren't hiring new people. They fired 60% of them. So where did $50 billion go?
They're buying their own stock.
Share buybacks.
Massive, relentless share buybacks. They are borrowing incredibly cheap money, well, it was cheap for a decade, to buy back their own shares from the open market.
Explain this mechanism for us. Why does borrowing billions of dollars just to buy your own stock make any business sense?
Think of the company's total value like a pizza.
Okay.
The actual company earnings, the profit, that's the pizza itself. The shares of stock out in the market are the slices.
Got it.
If you have 8 slices, each slice is relatively small.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a loan, buy back 4 of those slices and literally throw them in the trash, now there are only 4 slices left.
But the pizza itself is the same size.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The pizza didn't get any bigger, they didn't sell more burgers, but now each remaining slice is suddenly twice as big.
So the metric earnings per share automatically goes up.
It shoots up, not because the actual earnings improved, but simply because the number of shares decreased.
That is just artificial inflation.
It pumps the stock price artificially. And guess what? The executives get their performance bonuses based on hitting stock price targets.
Of course they do.
The shareholders get richer on paper, but the corporate entity itself is saddled with mountains of debt.
So wait, let me get this straight. They are leveraging the real estate, mortgaging the dirt to borrow billions of dollars to buy their own stock to make the price go up while simultaneously firing their actual workforce.
That is the exact playbook. It is financial engineering at its absolute, unadulterated peak. And if you dig into the leverage ratios here,
Yeah.
they are technically in negative equity.
What does negative equity actually mean for a corporation this size?
It means that, strictly on paper, their total liabilities exceed their total assets.
That sounds bankrupt. I mean, if I had negative equity in my house, I'd be underwater. I couldn't sell it.
It's exactly like a homeowner who took out a second, a third, and a fourth mortgage on their house to buy sports cars. On paper, they owe the bank $2 million, but the house is only worth $1 million.
So if they had to liquidate today, they would be flat broke.
Completely.
So why do the banks keep lending them billions of dollars if they are technically underwater?
Because this particular homeowner has a tenant living in the basement who is contractually obligated to pay $50,000 a month in rent, guaranteed.
The franchisees.
The cash flow from the rent and the royalties is so massive and so predictable that the bond markets and the banks don't even care about the underlying asset of value anymore. They only care about that monthly cash flow.
It is a perpetual motion machine, but it's fueled entirely by debt.
It works perfectly as long as the cash flow never ever stops, as long as regular people keep buying Big Macs.
And they tried to use some of that borrowed money to spark growth through tech. The sugar rush, I call it.
Dynamic yield.
2019. They dropped $300 million to acquire an Israeli artificial intelligence company.
They basically convinced themselves, in a boardroom delusion, that they were a Silicon Valley tech company.
They wanted to modernize the drive-thru.
Right. They wanted the drive-thru menu board to change dynamically based on the algorithm.
Like, oh, it's raining outside. The board automatically suggests hot coffee.
Exactly. Or the camera sees a minivan pull up. The AI suggests a bundle of Happy Meals.
Which sounds incredibly smart on paper.
It does, but it was too hard to integrate. The legacy systems couldn't handle it. In 2021, literally just 2 years later, they gave up and sold it to MasterCard.
They just flipped it.
They had this moment of clarity where they realized, wait a minute, we are a real estate holding company. We are not a software engineering firm. We have no idea how to run an AI division.
And then there is the Cosmic Six experiment.
The Starbucks fighter.
Launched in 2023, this tiny, small footprint store, drive-through only, just specialty beverages, wild colors, caffeinated slushies.
And completely dead by May 2025.
They closed all the test locations.
It seems like every single time they try to escape this rigid burger landlord box they built for themselves, the market just aggressively slaps them back down.
They cannot escape their core identity no matter how much they spend. Which leads us to Section 5 in the file, the actual cost of business. Because you cannot strip mine a legacy brand like this, hollowing it out with debt, without real-world consequences.
The risk vectors are very real.
Let's look at the human toll first. We just talked about how refranchising supposedly protects corporate from legal liability.
Supposedly. But not always.
The Byrne verdict.
Right. 2023.
A 4-year-old child is badly burned by a chicken McNugget that fell on her leg in a drive-through line. The jury ultimately awarded $800,000 in damages.
But here is the critical legal precedent from that case. McDonald's corporate lawyers try to argue, hey, not our problem. We don't run that store. That is the local franchisee's
A
problem.
liability shield.
But the court looked at it and said, no, because corporate headquarters specifically mandates the exact cooking temperature of that nugget across the entire global system, corporate is liable.
So they cannot fully hide behind the franchisee.
If you control the operational process, you ultimately own the risk.
And then there is the geopolitical risk, the Russian exit.
This was a massive, unprecedented blow to the empire. Do you remember the Golden Arches theory of conflict prevention?
Thomas Friedman's theory.
Yeah.
The basic idea was that any two countries that both have McDonald's restaurants would never go to war with each other because they are too heavily integrated into the globalized economy.
It was a beautiful, optimistic theory for the 90s.
And then 2022 happened.
Russia invades Ukraine.
And McDonald's, which had spent 30 years, literally since the fall of the Soviet Union, building up 850 highly profitable stores in Russia.
Owning some of the absolute best premium real estate in downtown Moscow.
They had to just walk away.
They closed all 850 stores. They were forced to sell the entire real estate portfolio to a local Russian licensee for absolute pennies on the dollar.
They took a catastrophic multi-billion-dollar write-down on that.
It proved that the Sunborn real estate model actually has a fatal weakness.
Because real estate is physically immobile.
Exactly. You cannot pick up the dirt and move it across the border when the tanks start rolling in.
Global dominance works perfectly, right up until the borders slam shut.
Yeah.
And finally, looking at the data, the inflation evidence, the Big Mac index.
This is probably the most honest, ground-level economic indicator we actually have in this file.
Let's trace the dollar. In the 1960s, a burger was 45 cents.
Very democratic. Accessible to anyone.
In 2024, that same burger is $5.69.
And that is just the national average. In some major cities, a combo meal is hitting $12 or $14.
That is the luxury of fast food now. The price point has completely drifted away from that original 15-cent speedy service ideal.
But here's the direct connection back to the financial engineering we were just talking about.
Go on.
Why is the price up so high? Sure, part of it is standard inflation. Beef costs more, labor costs more. But a massive part of it is because the corporation demands constantly higher rent and higher royalties from the franchisees to service that $55 billion debt pile.
Ah. So the efficiency savings, the scale they've built, none of that is being passed down to the customer anymore.
None of it. Yeah. It is all being diverted to pay the debt service and to fund the Wall Street share buybacks.
So the average customer in the drive-thru is literally paying to subsidize the financial engineering.
In a very real way, yes. They're paying off the debt.
So we reach the end of the file here, the current status assessment. The year is 2026.
Look at the final numbers. The stock is trading at all-time historic highs, $334.
The wealth creation is just undeniable. The math says if you put $1,000 into the IPO in 1966, you have nearly $80 million today.
It is arguably the most successful wealth creation engine in modern corporate history. You simply cannot argue with the chart.
But the paradox remains, and this is the thought I really want to leave you with, digging through all this evidence. They are making more money than ever before.
Sure.
They have fewer direct employees than they had in 1995.
Yes.
And they have vastly more debt than at any point in their history.
Which raises the final, inevitable question.
Is this the endgame of all successful capitalism?
Look at the overarching pattern in the file. A company starts out by building a truly great innovative product.
The 15-cent burger.
Right. Then they build a highly efficient system to scale and sell that product.
A real estate model.
But then eventually, they stop caring about the product entirely, and they focus exclusively on optimizing the system. They stop innovating, and they start extracting.
They stop building things and they just start financial engineering.
Exactly. McDonald's is no longer trying to invent the next great food item.
Right.
They gave up on that dream after the Arch Deluxe failed. They are just trying to rigorously optimize the rent extraction from the land they already own.
So the final question for Project Blackwood. When a corporate entity fundamentally stops selling food to customers and instead starts selling debt to banks,
Is it still actually a restaurant?
or is it just a massive hedge fund with a drive-through window?
This has been Project Blackwood.
End of